You know that feeling? You're stuck on a problem. Maybe it's a negotiation that's just stalled out or a project that won't get off the ground.
Right.
And you keep doubling down on the one strategy you know. You
Yeah.
push harder, maybe you raise your voice, you send more and more emails.
And nothing changes.
Nothing. It's the definition of frustration.
It is. You're just running into a wall, and instead of, I don't know, looking for a door, you're just trying to run at the wall faster.
Exactly. And we've all heard that cliche, right? If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Sure.
It's catchy, but it points to a really serious cognitive blind spot. We rely on this, the single perspective. We have one or two mental models, maybe from school or our first job, and we just try to map them onto every single situation.
Which is, it's a recipe for disaster. The world is not made of nails.
No.
It's screws, it's bolts, it's delicate glass, complex machinery. If you come at a complex relationship with a hammer, you're going to break something.
And that is the core problem we are tackling today. We're doing a deep dive into The Great Mental Models, Volume 1 by Shane Parrish. Now, most people probably know Parrish as the brain behind the Farnham Street blog.
Which is a phenomenal resource. It's basically a gym for your brain.
Yeah.
Parrish has spent years dissecting how the world's best thinkers, CEOs, investors, leaders, how they make decisions. And he realized they don't just think harder.
No.
They think differently.
Yeah.
They just have a better map of the territory.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're not just reviewing a book. We are, in a sense, upgrading your operating system. We're going to hand you a cognitive toolkit. But the really cool thing about this volume is where the tools come from. They're not business theories.
No, not at all. And it's not self-help fluff. They're derived from the hard sciences, physics, chemistry.
Which I love because gravity doesn't care if you believe in it. It just is.
That's the whole point. The laws of physics are immutable. They govern the universe. And Parrish's argument is that these same laws, the ones that decide how atoms collide or energy moves, they also govern how organizations function, how relationships work,
How we get things done.
how we get things done. If you understand the physics of it, you can navigate the chaos of life.
So today we're unpacking 7 of these models from the book. We're going to look at the physics of relationships, the thermodynamics of your messy desk, and why being a whale is fundamentally different from being plankton.
It's a fantastic lineup. Let's open the toolbox.
Okay, let's start with reciprocity. Now, in a social context, we think of this as, I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Right. Very transactional.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
But the source material anchors this in Newton's third law.
Which is, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In physics, forces always come in pairs. You can't touch something without it touching you back.
And this governs movement itself. The book uses the example of jet propulsion or even squids.
Think about that. How does a squid move? It doesn't swim with fins. It pulls water into its body and then violently expels it backward. It puts force on the water.
And in return, the water exerts an equal force back on the squid, which pushes it forward.
Exactly. Movement requires an exchange. You have to leave something behind, the propellant, to move forward. Now, if you map this onto human behavior, it gets pretty profound. We are basically hardwired to respond to forces acting on us.
Which brings us to the famous waiter study that's in the text. This is such a great example of social physics in action.
It's a classic. So the scenario is a restaurant. The waiter brings the check. The study found that if the waiter just leaves the check, fine, they get a standard tip. If they leave a single mint with the check, tips go up by about 3%.
Which is nice, but not, life-changing.
But here's the nuance. If the waiter leaves 2 mints, tips jump up 14%. And this is the best part. If the waiter leaves 1 mint, starts to walk away, pauses, turns back and says, "For you nice folks, here's an extra one," and puts a second mint down,
The tips go way up.
they skyrocket 23%.
That's wild. It's the same 2 mints. The actual value is pennies.
But the psychological force is completely different. That second scenario, it feels personal. It feels like a real gift. The customer now feels an imbalance in the social equation.
A debt.
A debt. The waiter did something for them, and the laws of reciprocity demands they balance the scales. They have to push back, in this case, with a bigger tip.
So it's like a golden rule 2.0. It's not just be nice. It's treat others well, because that force will inevitably return to you.
But, and this is an important but, we have to be careful, the book and the critiques within it remind us that while the force is equal, the outcome might not be fair. This connects to Robert Cialdini's work on influence.
Right, because if I buy you a $10 lunch, you might feel a psychological debt. I could then leverage that to get you to do something much bigger for me.
Precisely. Reciprocity can be weaponized. A salesperson might give you a small concession or a gift. They're initiating the action because they know you're wired to provide a reaction. If you aren't aware of the model, you might give away the farm just to get rid of that internal feeling of debt.
So the takeaway isn't just be generous, it's be aware. Be aware of the exchanges happening around you. Are you the squid or are you the water being pushed?
Exactly that.
All right, let's pivot. Reciprocity is about interaction, but what about just the energy it takes to keep a system alive? This next model is the one that, frankly, scares me a little. Thermodynamics.
It sounds intimidating, I know, but we're really just talking about one part of it, the second law of thermodynamics, entropy.
Or in plain English, disorder always increases.
In an isolated system, yes. The universe has a natural tendency toward chaos. If you do nothing, things don't stay the same. They fall apart.
This was a huge realization for me reading this. We have this default assumption that maintenance is just an annoyance. That if we build a house or start a company or get into a relationship, the default state should be stability.
And physics says, absolutely not. The default state is decay. You leave a house alone for 20 years, it doesn't just sit there. The roof leaks, the foundation cracks, the garden is completely overgrown, it degrades.
So if my life feels like it's constantly trying to unravel, if the laundry is piling up, the team at work is losing focus, that's not because I'm doing something wrong, it's just physics.
It is the fundamental drag of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the empowering part of the model. Order is not natural. Order is expensive.
Talk me through that.
It means the only thing that creates structure, the only thing that keeps a relationship strong or a business profitable is a constant injection of energy. You have to pay the entropy tax every single day.
So when you're exhausted at the end of the day just from keeping things running, that's real work. You're fighting the second law of thermodynamics.
You are holding back the chaos. And this ties into the economic perspective the book brings up, comparing an economy to temperature.
Right. Heat is just kinetic energy, molecules moving fast.
A hot economy is one where things happen fast. Money moves, goods ship, deals close, high velocity.
Mm-hmm.
But just like in physics, you can't have heat without burning fuel.
Energy is conserved. You can't get speed for free.
Right. If you want a high-performance career, or you want your startup to move at breakneck speed, you have to accept that the energy consumption, the burn rate, is going to be massive. You cannot have a hot system that is also low effort. It violates the laws of physics.
So pick your speed and pay the price.
That's the deal.
Okay, so we need energy to maintain order. But sometimes the problem isn't maintaining, it's just getting the ball rolling in the first place. Which brings us to our next set of tools, inertia and friction.
The enemies of motion. Newton's first law. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest.
I feel this deeply on Monday mornings. But the book applies this to habits and organizations in a really smart way. It talks about the cost of stopping.
This is so crucial, especially for anyone who thinks they're good at multitasking. Physics tells us that changing states takes a lot of force. If you're working on a report, your brain is in motion. You have momentum.
Then you stop to check an email.
And you've applied the brakes. You've stopped the object. To get back to the report, you have to overcome inertia all over again. You have to burn this spike of fuel just to get back to where you were.
So multitasking isn't just distracting, it's energetically inefficient. You're spending all your fuel on starting and stopping, not on actually moving forward.
Exactly. The most efficient way to travel is at a constant velocity. The most efficient way to work is deep focus.
But sometimes, even with focus, it feels like you're wading through mud. That's friction.
Or viscosity.
Right. And this is where the book drops that whale versus plankton analogy, which I think is one of the most powerful tools in the whole kit.
It's a brilliant lesson on scale. Imagine a blue whale swimming through the ocean. To that whale, water feels thin. It just glides. The viscosity, the thickness of the water is negligible because the whale is so massive and powerful.
Okay, now zoom all the way in to a single plankton in that same water.
For a microscopic organism, water doesn't feel like water. It feels like syrup or wet concrete. The molecular bonds of the water are actually strong enough to trap it.
The environment is exactly the same. The water hasn't changed. But the experience of that environment is totally different depending on your size.
This is a huge insight for strategy. Let's say there's a complex government regulation. For a giant corporation, a whale, that regulation is just water. They have a legal department, they have capital, they glide right through it.
But for a two-person startup, the plankton, that same regulation is syrup. It can stop them dead in their tracks.
So when you're looking at a problem, you have to ask, what is the viscosity of this environment? And what is my scale? If you are small, you cannot play the whale's game. You'll get stuck. You have to find a different environment or a totally different way to move.
Okay, so we've got resistance, we've got the syrup, we've got inertia. How do we actually spark the change? We need a fire.
You need activation energy.
This one comes from chemistry, and the concept is that even if a reaction wants to happen, it still needs a kickstart.
Right. Think about a pile of dry wood. It has the potential to burn. It will release energy when it burns, but it doesn't just spontaneously combust.
Which is a good thing, generally speaking. We don't want the world constantly exploding.
Exactly. Stability is valuable. So nature puts a barrier in place, a threshold. To get the wood to burn, you have to apply an initial input of high energy, a match, a spark, to break the chemical bonds and start the reaction.
In our lives, this is that moment of dread before starting a hard task. I don't want to do this. The barrier is high.
And the mistake we make is thinking that the whole task will be that hard. But the activation energy is just the hump at the very beginning. Once the fire is burning, it sustains itself.
But sometimes that hump is just too high. You don't have the willpower to strike the match. And this is where my favorite part of the reading comes in, the catalyst.
And specifically, the story of Elizabeth Fulham.
Yes, I feel like she needs a movie. Can you set the stage for us?
So we're in the late 1700s, 1794 to be exact. Elizabeth Fulham is a chemist, but she's working in a world that doesn't really believe women belong in science. And she's studying something practical, how to dye cloth. She's trying to get metal salts to bind to fabric using light, basically early photography concepts.
And she hits a wall. The reaction just won't work.
It won't work, but she notices something odd. When the fabric is wet, when water is present, the reaction happens perfectly. The metal reduces, and the gold appears on the silk.
So she must have thought, okay, the water is part of the reaction.
That's the logical assumption.
Yeah.
But she looks closer, and at the end of the reaction, all the water is still there. It hasn't been used up. It wasn't consumed. But the reaction could not happen without it.
And that is the definition of a catalyst, a substance that lowers the activation energy, speeds up the reaction, but isn't consumed in the process.
It was a groundbreaking discovery. She published her work, but because of the biases of the time, she faced just immense skepticism. It wasn't until decades later that the famous chemist Jöns Jacob Berzelius formalized the concept of catalysis, and he even acknowledged her foundational work.
It's a powerful story of persistence, but the mental model she gave us is even more powerful. Because in life, we so often try to be the fuel.
We throw our own energy at the problem. We push harder. We work longer hours. We burn ourselves up to get the reaction to happen.
But a catalyst doesn't burn up.
No. If you're a leader, this is the most important question you can ask. Am I the fuel or am I the catalyst? If you are doing the work for your team, you are fuel. You will run out. But if you are creating the conditions that make the work easier, better tools, clearer goals, removing that syrup, then you are the catalyst.
Automation is a catalyst. A checklist is a catalyst. A good company culture is a catalyst. It just lowers the barrier so the reaction happens faster with less effort from you.
Exactly. Stop trying to push the rock up the hill. Just lower the hill.
Which brings us to the final tool in our kit today, the ultimate force multiplier, leverage.
Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world.
Archimedes, the classic image, a small person lifting a giant weight.
It's about mechanical advantage. You're inputting a small force over a long distance to create a massive force over a short distance.
And we see this everywhere in the modern world. Technology is leverage. Writing code is leverage. You write it once, and it can run 1 billion times. Media is leverage.
Capital is leverage. You use other people's money to build things you couldn't afford on your own.
It sounds perfect. Who wouldn't want more leverage? But the outline for this deep dive has a pretty big warning label, doesn't it?
It does. And this comes from Nassim Taleb, the author of Anti-Fragile. We have to talk about the dark side of leverage.
Because leverage doesn't just multiply the good stuff.
It multiplies everything. It multiplies your errors. It multiplies your risk. If you're holding a 10-foot lever and your hand slips just 1 inch, the other end swings wildly.
Yeah, if I'm driving a car at 10 miles an hour, a mistake is a fender bender. If I leverage an engine to go 100 miles an hour, a mistake is fatal.
Precisely. And in financial terms, if you borrow massive amounts of money to invest, that's leverage. A tiny 1% drop in the market could wipe out your entire net worth.
So leverage creates fragility.
It completely obscures vulnerability. When things are going up, leverage makes you look like a genius. You're moving mountains with your pinky finger. But if the system shakes even a little bit, that force multiplier works against you. You have no buffer.
So the model here isn't just get more leverage, it's respect the leverage.
Use it to amplify your results. but never become so dependent on it that one small crack destroys the whole system.
We've covered a lot of physics today, from squids to steam engines. Let's try to pull this together into a cohesive strategy for you, because the goal is a full toolbox.
Think of it as a sequence for solving problems.
Okay, walk me through it.
Step 1. Reciprocity. You start by understanding you're part of a responsive system. If you want the world to move for you, you have to expel some propellant. You give value to get value.
Step 2, thermodynamics. You accept that chaos is coming, you stop resenting the maintenance work, and realize that investing energy is the only way to keep your house, your team, your life from falling apart.
Step 3. Inertia and friction. You check your scale. Are you a whale or are you a plankton? Are you trying to swim through syrup? And are you wasting energy by constantly starting and stopping?
Step 4, activation energy and catalysts. If you're stuck, don't just strain harder. Look for the catalyst. Find the tool or the strategy that lowers the barrier to entry. Be Elizabeth Fulham's water.
And finally, leverage. Once you are moving, find the lever that amplifies your effort. But always keep one eye on the fragility it creates.
It's a powerful way to navigate reality, and it certainly beats the single perspective.
It definitely beats hitting everything with a hammer.
Before we sign off, there was one concept in the chapter headings we didn't dive deep into, but I think it's the perfect thought to leave everyone with: the Red Queen effect.
Ah, yes. From Through the Looking Glass.
Right. The Red Queen says to Alice, "Now here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place."
It's a model of evolution. In any competitive ecosystem, everyone else is adapting. Everyone else is finding new catalysts. Everyone is building better levers.
So if you are standing still, you are actually falling behind.
Which brings us to the final question you should ask yourself today. In a world that is always speeding up, are you building a longer lever to move bigger mountains? Or are you looking for a better catalyst so you can move faster than everyone else?
Something to mull over. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.